How you doing, YouTube? Matt Massa Beer Reviews back with a little bit more off color. Yeah, we'll see how this one plays in the form of their grown gnome. This be an Imperial Porter brewed with roots. What kind of roots? We'll get to that. This comes courtesy of Mike. Thank you very much, brother. This is a 9% alcohol by volume, pale brown, extra special flaked barley malted beer with Simcoe hops. And secret ingredients are chicory root, Gnome root, and licorice root. Sounds like this one's going to come off as a spicy Belgian influence kind of porter. At least that, when I think of that licorice, that's how it kind of comes off to me in my brain. So we'll see what's what. Off color, known for their fuckduckery. Their cans and bottles have been weird for me. I've had way more off cans than I have had decent cans. So hopefully this one shows improves. What does that look like? It looks like an Imperial Porter to me. Imperial Brown Ale. Rich kind of mahogany mixed with brown colored body. Kind of like where I like my malted malt ball coffee colored head that's dissipating super quickly. I assume that's due to the adjuncts. And label-wise, you know, it's a little mouse rat thing. It looks like a gnome. I don't hate it. I actually like off-color those labels quite a bit. There's a burp. Okay, so yeah. The head has kind of settled down a little bit. Very much looks like a cola kind of head to me. Anyway, let's get a nose. It smells like a coffee Imperial Brown Ale. That's kind of what I'm getting off of this, which is really fun because there's no coffee in this whatsoever. Chicory root, I can kind of see that coming from there. One of my favorite beers of all time is Chicory Stout from Dogfish Head from like 20 years ago. So I can get that. Now, the Gnome root, I have no idea how that comes off. The licorice root, obviously, is something I think we're all familiar with, but really this comes off as an Imperial Brown Ale with a decent kind of coffee component. So you're talking about Simcoe hops, you know, a bit catty, a bit aggressive kind of hop. Not really getting that there. Getting more of a rich kind of brown ale as opposed to a porter. And the way that coffee kind of comes off without it actually being in there is super fun. Let's dive in. Cheers. I mean, it really does come off as a coffee beer. This is really cool. This is probably the best beer I've ever had from Off Color Brewing. And not necessarily that it's like a knee-jerk, fantastical beer. You know what I mean? Like, I like it. I think it's tasty. That high ABV is not necessarily my jam, but to know, you know, what this beer is made of, but to get one of the more coffee-forward beers without having coffee in it, and again, chicory can kind of put you there, and I don't know what Gnome does, so maybe that brings you a little bit closer to home. But man, it blind. If I drank this blind as a mystery beer, I would assume, again, ass out of you and me, but I would assume I would call this somebody's rich kind of coffee porter Imperial Brown, because that's the way it comes off. It's definitely not a stout, but it's not necessarily a porter either. It's more of an Imperial Brown. It's got this spicy coffee to it, which makes sense with that chicory. But again, how coffee forward it is, you know, it kind of not, again, I keep kind of walking myself back off of that comment of saying, but it's chicory. It kind of makes sense. And it does, but it's beyond what chicory typically does for me when it comes to coffee. Even though that can impart those kind of flavors, I think it's really fun. I think it's interesting. It's just so many ingredients to get to a very singular place that it ends up being kind of frustrating, but at the same time uber cool that they got there that way. So it's like, you know, it's kind of like Common Core math. This is like the Common Core math version of beer, and that, you know, instead of 2 + 2 = 4, it's your whole Common Core craziness, and you end up at 4 anyway. You didn't have to take that route, but I appreciate the effort. And I think it's kind of cool that it works out that way. I mean, that's probably the best explanation I can make for this beer. Yeah, it's fun. It's got a rich, nice kind of maltiness to it that doesn't get nowhere near sweet. There's a soft bittering that's kind of generic underlying that kind of counterbalances any sweet, and it makes it almost more neutral. The mouthfeel is nice. That's why I get to that kind of Imperial brown, because it really lacks that kind of porter mouthfeel to me. But it really, where it shines is the malty sweetness that doesn't get over the top, in combination the way that kind of coffee comes off from those combination of roots. It's a really fun beer, and something I'm actually pumped that I got to try. So thank you very much, dude. This is a very cool beer, Mike. Glad I had it, because a little disenchanted with Off Color, but I think one of the beers they sent me was a mystery beer. It's got to be posted by now. In combination with this one, a little bit of redemption, at least in my eyes. Whatever that means to anybody out there. So, anyway, let's talk about it. Is it one of the better Imperial porters? One of the better porters I've had? As like, no. Because it's not a porter for me. Is it one of the more interesting beers? And that's kind of where I'd classify it, because it's really one of the more kind of unclassifiable beers, which kind of makes sense. It's Off Color's MO, so it's not like we're doing something kind of weird here. Yes, I mean, to give me this kind of expressive spicy coffeeness based off of just roots alone in, mind you, a 9% Imperial Brown Ale is awesome. I mean, the only other beer that came off like this impactful without actually having coffee in it was one of Dan Swartz's beer. I forget what it was. I reviewed it, but it was just a brown ale. It may have been it wasn't a Shores beer. It was one of his darker milds. Maybe it might have been an English mild actually, but it was 5%. No coffee in it whatsoever, and it was the most coffee beer I ever had. So that one would kind of lead that race in the weird no coffee but comes off like coffee race. But this is in that kind of realm where it's giving me such fun flavors that come from not additions of that flavor. A lot of people put, pastry stouts, a bunch of different ingredients in the beer, whether it be Twinkies or fucking hot dogs or whatever it is to impart that flavor. It's much more cool, much more interesting to elicit flavor from not those ingredients, from core ingredients, than actually throwing that thing in. You throw Peeps in a beer, it tastes like Peeps, awesome. But if you say you give me a beer that's core for with a couple added ingredients that isn't like confectionery based and it tastes like Peeps, that piques my interest, and that's where this beer kind of lies. Value and availability, no idea. So Mike, let us know it's what, and leave you with, if you like what we like this beer. If you like interesting, if you like coffee, if you like fun beers, if you like Imperial Browns, and you like Roots. Who doesn't like Roots? Great band. Great show. And great beer. So there you go. Another review in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Down there if you want to talk about it. Massive Beers if you want to check me out doing the social media stuff. Beer Massive. Want to check me out doing the whole podcasting thing. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little Off Color right now. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers.